to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Angel of Scutari, written by Paul Sutton. This is one of the rare occasions of a pure historical in the 7th Doctor story. I wouldn't say it's era because this was audio drama released much later, but it's a rare occasion of a pure historical. This seems to be a very popular one with the fan base. Some of it crediting it as one of the best stories featuring Hex. This story does a lot for Hex. In fact, for the majority of the story, he's by himself as he starts learning and adapting to the situation that's given to him at hand. But the thing to note about this story is it does rely on the emotions and the follow-up from the previous story that was released, which I believe was called Enemy of the Daleks. However, I have not got that story, neither have I listened to it. It's not that so connected that it's completely difficult to get into. Basically, what you've got to know is that during an adventure on the planet Bliss, Hex was unable to save anybody, which horrified him. And the Doctor has basically taken him, in this adventure, the Doctor has taken him to this situation to try and make him feel better, in a sense. So kind of an interesting thing, but yeah, it does rely on you knowing and understanding the characters' motivations and their feelings for one another during the previous story, which I don't own. I've done a little bit of research, and that's all I can find about it. So yeah, so anyway, this is the official Big Finish CD cover, which is really nice there. And this is my unofficial DVD cover, which I made myself. I tried to get it to blend, but clearly it didn't work. You can really easily see where I've cropped it there. And I've tried to get like a painting of the Crimson War, which was what this story is based upon. The Crimson War, for those of you who don't understand, it's a war that was fought during the 1850s. It's a war against Russia versus Britain. I'm not really that knowledgeable of these details. To clarify, rumours is that in season 13 there's going to be a story about the Crimson War, but I'm recording this video at near the end of 2020, so I have no idea, whilst making this video, if there's any Crimson War storylines in the new series of Doctor Who. And this story also features not one, but two historical figures. It features the famous nurse, Florence Nightingale, who was a pioneer in modern nursing. She's basically the first modern nurse, in a sense, and she became later known famously as the Lady with the Lantern for helping soldiers, injured soldiers, during the night, where she would walk around with a lantern. So that's really cool. But also on the Russian side, we also get to meet Les Tolstoy. I've really butchered that name, I do apologise. A famous writer who would later go on to write works like War and Peace and Anne Calendar. I completely butchered that. I should have done my research prior to this. I do apologise. But yeah, a pure historical, very interesting. I've always been somebody who is trying to push for more pure historicals. I think they are a type of story which are very unique to Doctor Who, and I think we should have more of. And we should really get one in the new series as well. Again, I'm recording this in 2020. I have no idea if these pure historicals do actually return in the new series. In season 11, we did have stories which are incredibly close, but they did still have sci-fi elements that kept it in the realms of pseudo-historials than pure historials. So that's a little tangent about the 13th Doctor's era. But yeah, the story actually starts off with Ace and Hex landing on a boat. And Hex doesn't seem to be there. In fact, Ace describes it as that they've gone, I believe they said 4 weeks prior to when they originally left off. This was one of the cases where I thought it was a callback to the last story, Enemy of the Daleks, but no, this is purely just for this story. Again, Hex doesn't seem to be there. There's no explanation as to what happens at the start. In a way, the ship that they're on gets attacked, and Ace starts shouting at doctors like, "You knew we were going to be here. We knew that Hex would want to help those people, and that he would stay there. And you've put them there to try and make him feel better. You're still manipulating us, and even being here in this tragic event is very manipulative. You know something, Doctor, don't you?" And the Doctor confesses. He's like, "Yes, I know. I saw some documents that show that we were here before. This is where I get captured by the British soldiers, and you are not anywhere in the records." When Ace asks, "Is there anything else about the details?" The Doctor mentions that he was brought in to the British Army's prisons covered in blood, which wasn't his, of course. During all of this attack and all of this thing, the Doctor and Ace actually get separated as the TARDIS and Ace fall into the river. Their stories get separated as the Doctor gets caught up in the British army and Ace gets caught up in the Russian army. And then we get cut into like 6 weeks later, in which two characters, I believe it's Nightingale and another character, are talking to each other, and they're stating that there's this boy who is very good at being a medical doctor, that he's a great doctor, and when they ask what his name is, they say that his name is Thomas Schofield, which I can't remember if I stated in The Harvest, but that's Hex's real name. Hex is a nickname that he presumably gave himself, or his friends gave him, but his real name is Thomas Schofield. And that's really like the cliff of the story, because that's actually the pre-credit scene for the first episode, and then we get the intro. It's really lovely to see some cold openers for the 7th Doctor stories. Obviously, he would be the first Doctor to utilise pre-credit scenes in a big way, with Time in the Rani and Remembrance of the Daleks. But yeah, it's a nice little, I guess, cliche from those stories to have a nice little cold opener, but that's not like a big deal. We then cut to 6 weeks after, or just earlier on in the Doctor and Ace's timeline, where they get off the TARDIS in a military base, where there's soldiers dying and getting infected and are injured on the floor. And Hex sees this, and he notices the Doctor's looking at him and says, "I see what you've done. thank you, Doctor, I won't regret this. And Hex actually goes out and states that he's going to stay there for a while, not forever, only for about 6 weeks, until Florence Nightingale comes down. And Ace is like, you can't just leave him here, and the Doctor's like, he knows what he's doing. And it's basically revealed that Hex, he suffered from traumatic experience, as we know, in Enemy of the Daleks. And the Doctor knows that a bit about Hex's backstory, that the reason he became a nurse in the first place is because when he was in school, one of the few people that came to his mind when people asked him what he wanted to do when he grew up was actually the stories of the lady with a lamp, Florence Nightingale. So basically, he's meeting his own hero in a sense, and he knows that she comes to this area to save as many lives as she can, but that's in 6 weeks into the future, or 4 weeks into the future, or something. So he basically asks the Doctor and Ace, could he stay there for a while until she arrives. At one point, he asks Ace to get him into the TARDIS so he can get some equipment, some anesthetics to help the soldiers. And Ace is like, I don't know if the Doctor's going to be too pleased for that. That could be meddling with time. And initially, Hex is like, don't worry, it's not going to be anything important. It's just going to be a few anesthetics, something which can be easily dispersed of as soon as he uses them. And then after he goes inside the TARDIS, he actually is like, right, actually I can take some futuristic equipment to help me, like a sonic, I believe this was a sonic lance or a sonic toolkit to try and help him. The Doctor is actually away trying to examine the rest of this British army, where he gets basically sent to prison and is waiting for one of the soldiers. I'm trying to remember his name. Brigadier General Kitchen, who seems to be very unstable. He seems to be like sweating, he seems to be really nervous. And when he meets the Doctor in the prison, the Doctor introduces himself, but Brigadier General Kitchen looks at the Doctor and is like, it's you! Men, I order you to execute this man immediately! And the Doctor's shocked. It's like, what, you know who I am? And so a bit of shenanigans ensue, which basically reveals that the Doctor knows that he's going to have to go back in time to relive these events. The story kind of mix-mashes between the plot line when the Doctor dropped off Hex and the plot line where he goes back in time. Ace is held prisoner in the Russian prison, where she actually meets the famous Russian novelist, who I'm not going to pronounce his name again because I will butcher it. And she seem to like him. She knows who he is, and despite her being a prisoner of war, this character treats her very well and nicely, and is like, I hope you're comfortable. I'll try to help you at the best of my abilities. You're probably a British spy, but I do feel sympathy for you. I will try and make your stay in the prison as comfortable as possible. And he also jokes around, and he has this nice little relationship with Ace. And he has all these bets that he can get Ace to say certain things or to kiss him at one point, to which Ace actually does kiss him at one point, showing that she's much more mature than she was back in her television days, where at the start of it anyway, she was, I believe she said she was 16, although she pretends to be 18. So, yeah, but Ace's story is really just pushed to the side. It's more of a B plot for her, basically to put on the sidelines for her to get ready for the main action, the main plot of the Doctor trying to work out what's going on and trying to set time straight, and Hex helping around, waiting for Nightingale to appear, where he meets her and becomes like a famous, like meeting like his famous idol, and his like door dropped and stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of great pacing, there's a lot of great suspense and atmosphere. The main villain seems to be Brigadier General Kitchen, who seems to be really nervous. They've explained that he once went off to a particular mission where he had to murder someone who's known to be a Russian spy. However, when he came back, he didn't seem like himself, and he was constantly sweating, he's constantly angry. He quickly points the finger at the Doctor, Ace and Hex, and is like, "You are spies, you're all spies!" And the Doctor kind of tries to manipulate his way out of situations. There's a great moment where he's talking to one of the guards who he can see that this is actually weighing heavily on his conscience. A soldier with a conscience. In fact, the Doctor actually meets, what's his name? Tsar Nicholas the First, Taz Nicholas the First, as the Doctor tries to speak to him and try to persuade him that he's not a double agent or a triple agent, he's just a bystander, so please just let him go. But this character who is very ill and is got a very heavy conscience, is like, I don't have any time for people who have a heavy conscience but don't have any sympathy for me. And so he decides to lock the Doctor as a prisoner, and the Doctor tries to manipulate himself out, but seems to have failed, as this character seems to be aware that people manipulate other people, and it seems to be not that like he knows the Doctor, but he can suspect him enough that he would manipulate him into trying to give up the status. But the Doctor failed and tried. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and it's basically the Aztecs for Hex, as at one point he forgets that he still has a sonic lance, and that he's just being there is actually a worrying time. He tries to hide it as much as possible, as he's helping the soldiers as much as he can, until Nightingale arrives. And when Nightingale arrives, like I said, his mouth, his jaw dropped. He's like, "Oh my God, it's Nightingale!" I'm like, people call me the Doctor here, but I'm actually a nurse, and I'm a nurse because of you, because you're just such a great role model. And originally, Nightingale is dismissive of him. She's like, "I have no time for idiots." She doesn't say this to his face, but she says it to other characters. But other characters actually back him up, and it's like, he's actually a very respectable man here. He's been here for, I believe he said 4 weeks, and is, I know I keep changing the weeks, I do apologise, and that he's actually done a lot of good for these soldiers and for these men, and he's kind of like you in a sense, that he's someone who's just doing very good work as a nurse, as a doctor, helping people getting better. However, Hex meets with Brigadier General Kitchen, who seems to be like struggling, and Hex accidentally gives up information that he knows the Doctor and Ace. Like, he doesn't know their roles at the time. At this point, he believes they're dead, because he actually found the TARDIS after some soldiers brought it up from the sea, and found that the TARDIS is very weak. In fact, some soldiers actually cut up the wood, which shouldn't be physically possible, and reuse the wood of the TARDIS, which again shouldn't be possible. So he believes that because the Doctor and the TARDIS are symbiotic, that if the Doctor's dead, then the TARDIS would lose its abilities of its chameleon circuits, of all of its ability, and just become a normal wooden box. So X is basically there not knowing what to do and trying to stay out of history. Yeah, there's a lot of great Hex moments, and we get to learn a lot about him. We get to learn about why he became an A&E nurse. We learn that like this is like the story which kind of strengthens him up throughout the rest of these adventures. He's a bit of a coward. Not to say he's too much of a coward. I mean, he wouldn't be in the TARDIS crew otherwise, but he is a bit of a coward. He's the type of person who's afraid of basements and attics and stuff like that. But he does his best to try and help whenever he can. And this character, the Brigadier General Kitchen, actually shoots Hex in the shoulder, where because of the filthy environment, his wounds are quickly infected, and he is basically at the brim of death. Back in the past, the Doctor and Ace actually break out due to the help of people they've befriended, and the Doctor tracks Ace, to which Brigadier General Kitchen and the Russian writer actually meet up and about to fight, only for the Doctor and Ace to actually hug it out. The Doctor's like, Ace, this can't be more important, hug me. It's like, okay, if you're very persuasive, what's the word? You're very eager, Doctor, but okay, and they hug, and then the TARDIS forms around them. Now this TARDIS isn't a blue TARDIS, it's a white TARDIS. The outerior is now a white TARDIS. The Doctor explains that the TARDIS has activated its hostile displacement unit, whatever, which has been seen before. I believe it was the Invasion, could be wrong, where the TARDIS relocates in a dangerous place. And basically what's happened is that the TARDIS was connected to Ace, because she was the closest thing, because it struggled to connect to the Doctor where it was at sea. But because she wasn't a Time Lord, the TARDIS didn't appear to her until the Doctor hugged her, and it sensed the two heartbeats of the Doctor and dematerialized around them. And the white shell is basically it growing a new exterior. I would like to think that this is the origins of the redesign exterior of the TV movie. So now we completely have the TARDIS that we are familiar with in the TV movie. But like I said, it's a white TARDIS instead of a blue TARDIS. This would actually become a heavy plot storyline in later stories, in which, from my acknowledgement, the TARDIS is actually split into two, a white TARDIS and a black TARDIS, in which the Doctor actually bounces between the two TARDISes, where in the white TARDIS he travels with Ace and Hex, and in another TARDIS, in the black TARDIS, he travels with these two girls. Sadly, I have no stories to my acknowledgement that feature the black TARDIS. I believe I have some stories in the white TARDIS storyline, even though in those stories it's not important apart from the fact that it's a white TARDIS. But it's going to be one of those things that connected heavily to storylines. It's not that important here. You just got to know that really the TARDIS is now white. And the TARDIS dematerializes to where Hex is. And the Brigadier General Kitchen sees this, basically proven to him anyway, that the Doctor is some sort of enemy, and that he couldn't just say that they disappeared, so he told all of his British soldiers that they're dead, only for the TARDIS to appear where Hex is, where General Kitchen has just shot him. And when everybody asks them, it's like, General Kitchen, I thought you said that the Doctor and Hex are dead, that they were murdered. Does the Kitchen character basically state, it was me all along, I was the traitor, I was giving up secrets to hopefully end this war because I just see these pointless death and murders and I need to stop it as much as possible by basically fastening the deaths so that later on then there can be no more deaths, if that makes any logical possibility. But the other characters see this and basically knock General Kitchen out. And the Doctor and Ace see that Hex is in a really bad shape and take him into the TARDIS to try and get him healed. Not before the Doctor greets himself to Florence Nightingale. And Ace kind of has a shifty relationship with her because she does kind of get in the way in a sense. And that's how the story ends, basically on a cliffhanger of Hex in a very vulnerable state, in a near-death experience, not knowing whether he's going to live and die, as Ace and the Doctor scream out his name in fear. Again, that is kind of a cliffhanger for the next story, which I believe is called Project Destiny. However, I do not own that story, and that story also connects to the next story, which I do own, so that's going to be a massive gap in the continuity for my videos, sadly. I do apologise. But yeah, Angels of Scutari. Overall, it's a really great story. I really am happy that we got a pure historical, one that heavily connects with our main characters and to show Hex, to prove that basically he is a great companion. I mean, we've already had stories like his introduction which prove that he's a great companion, but it's nice to have another one, I suppose. Sometimes it can be a bit confusing on where we are in the timeline. Sometimes we hear that the Doctor and Ace have been murdered, only for the Doctor and Ace to be in prison and everybody to be seen to be fine. But it's not too confusing that later on you don't just click, alright, okay, we're back at this period of time, or in the future we're back in the future of the story. Yeah, and this is a story I would highly recommend. Again, it's heavily reliant on the story arc, both as in stories prior to this connect to this, and this story is going to connect to future adventures, so it leaves doors open. But it's not too distracting that I would give it a miss. So, yeah, highly recommended, The Angels of Scutari. So join me next time when the Doctor reunites with an old friend. So join me next time for a death in the family. And I'll see you next time for the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!